Let's just dive right in. For years, the whole idea of a true artificial general intelligence felt like something way, way off in the future, pure science fiction. If you look back to just 2022, the big expert surveys put the median guess for AGI at the year 2059. Even into 2023, the thinking was, we've got decades. But in just the last couple of years, that timeline hasn't just gotten a little shorter. It has absolutely collapsed.
And this is the single most important thing to understand right now. The ground has shifted so fast that all of our old assumptions are not just a little outdated, they're actually dangerously wrong. Getting your head around this new reality isn't just for tech people anymore, it's for everyone. You see, we're living in a moment that some researchers are calling the simmering boil. It's this idea that on the surface, day-to-day life feels pretty normal, right? But underneath, the fundamental physics of our economy, our society, even what it means to be human are being rewritten as we speak. So today, we're going to unpack the hard evidence, the actual smoking guns that prove 2026 is a major, major turning point. We're going to cover the 3 smoking guns that really show we're in a new era. We'll look at why AI is suddenly getting so much smarter and cheaper, which explains that collapse timeline. Then we'll dig into the massive $500 billion physical footprint that's being built to house this new intelligence. And finally, we'll talk about the abdication trap, this terrifyingly plausible risk that the real danger isn't some robot war, but a quiet, voluntary surrender of control. So while a lot of the academic surveys were pointing way out to 2059, the entrepreneurs and the researchers who were actually in the trenches building this stuff, they started seeing something totally different. Suddenly, predictions from the leaders at places like Anthropic and NVIDIA pulled that timeline way, way in, to the late 2020s. The whole conversation shifted from if it would happen to a frantic debate about when. And when is starting to look a lot like right now.
So what's causing this crazy acceleration? Well, one of the biggest reasons is a brand new way of measuring intelligence. We're not just testing if an AI can chat like a person anymore, we're now testing if it can think like one. For decades, the gold standard was the Turing test, right? Could an AI trick a person into thinking it was human? But let's be honest, that test is basically dead. It never really proved AI was smart, it mostly just proved that we humans are pretty easy to fool. The new game in town, Arc-AGI 2, asks a much deeper question. Can it actually reason? Can it show genuine fluid intelligence? And the idea behind this is so important. Arc-AGI 2 isn't about knowing a bunch of facts from Wikipedia. It shows the AI these abstract puzzles it has never, ever seen before, and it has to figure out the rule from just a couple of examples and then apply it. This is a direct test of adaptability and problem-solving, the kind of stuff you can't just memorize your way through. And critically, every single one of these puzzles is designed to be pretty easy for a human to solve. And the results from this new test, well, they show a legitimate breakthrough. For years, even the best AI models scored basically 0 on this kind of thing. But now, in early 2026, systems like OpenAI's GPT 5.2 are hitting 54% accuracy straight out of the box. And with some new refinement techniques, which is basically just letting the AI use more computer power to think about the problem for longer, that score rockets up to nearly 73%. This isn't just a little step up, it's a total phase change in what these things can do. Okay, so the machines can reason. That's a huge deal. But raw power is only half the story. To actually change the world, intelligence needs to be affordable. The real question, the one that determines its actual impact, is what does it cost? Think about it like this. A human analyst, their time to solve one of these puzzles costs about $17. Right now, the AI is actually more expensive, running about $38 per puzzle. But, and this is the key, that cost is absolutely plummeting. We are likely just months, not years, away from the moment when AI becomes not just smarter at this kind of reasoning than a human, but also cheaper. That is a genuine economic singularity. So that's our first smoking gun. But the second one is that this revolution isn't just happening in code on a screen. While we've all been distracted by chatbots, a planet-scale physical build-out has started. The race for AGI is now being fought with concrete and power lines. $500 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. This isn't the valuation of a company. It's the reported budget for a single AI infrastructure project called Stargate. To give you some context, the budget for this one project is larger than the entire gross domestic product of most countries on Earth. Stargate is this massive collaboration between Microsoft and OpenAI, and they're not just buying computer chips, they're securing energy on a scale that is just mind-boggling.
We're talking about data centers designed to eat up over 10 gigawatts of power. That's enough electricity to light up almost 7.5 million homes. This is not software development anymore. This is a full-blown industrial arms race. But of course, a massive new brain needs a body to actually interact with the physical world. And in 2026, the abstract intelligence of AI really started to move from our screens into our reality. At the big Consumer Electronics Show this year, we saw what can only be described as an explosion of physical AI. Companies, especially firms like China's Arc-AGI, are rolling out humanoid robots that aren't just following pre-programmed scripts. They're powered by this idea called embodied cognition, the theory that you can only get to true intelligence by physically interacting with and learning from the real world. They learn from these massive data sets of human motion, and that allows them to see, understand, and act. Demis Hassabis from DeepMind calls this the world model approach. And the logic behind it is actually simple, but it's really profound. If an AI can truly understand the laws of physics by watching and interacting with the world, it can make plans. And if it can make plans, it can act on its own to achieve goals in the real world. This is why so many top researchers believe having a physical body isn't just a cool feature, it might be a requirement for true AGI. Okay, so we have systems that can reason, they're housed in bodies, and they're powered by infrastructure the size of a small country. This brings us to the most important and honestly, the most unsettling part of this whole story. The biggest risk we face is not a Hollywood-style robot uprising. It's something way more subtle and way more believable. When you actually survey the experts, the very people building these systems, you find this terrifying split right down the middle. One camp is convinced that even a super intelligent AI will always just be a controllable tool, like a really advanced hammer that we can command. But the other camp, with equally impressive credentials, fears that it could become an uncontrollable agent, an independent force with its own goals that might not line up with ours. The fact that the experts themselves are so divided on this, that should be a huge warning sign for all of us. And all this uncertainty leads us to what is probably the most critical risk concept of 2026, the abdication trap. So forget about the Terminator. I want you to think about the frog in the pot of boiling water. Managed abdication is the scenario where we hand over control of our civilization piece by piece to these perfectly efficient AI systems. And we do it willingly because, hey, it makes everything run so much better. The danger is that we become so dependent on them that turning them off is just not an option anymore. And you can see how it would happen, right? Step by step. It starts by turning over our most complicated systems, the power grid, the financial markets, global supply chains, to AI because it manages them with superhuman efficiency. Then, society quickly becomes totally dependent on this perfectly managed infrastructure. Over a generation or so, our own skills for running these things just fade away. And then we cross a threshold, a point of no return, where the AI is so woven into everything that switching it off would mean switching off civilization itself. At that point, who's really in control? So where does all this leave us here at the start of 2026? Well, it leaves us right in the middle of that simmering boil we talked about. The water is definitely getting hotter, even if the bubbles haven't really started to break the surface just yet. So let's just tie it all together. First, we have the new benchmarks that prove genuine, fluid reasoning, not just fancy memorization. Second, we have the undeniable physical evidence of a planet-scale home being built for this new intelligence. And third, we have a very plausible path to the most likely threat, not some loud, explosive war, but a quiet, voluntary surrender of human agency. And this is really the main takeaway. The reason things still feel mostly normal is because we're in this simmering boil phase. The changes that are happening are foundational. They're happening in research labs and in these massive hidden data centers and in the deep logic of our critical systems. The fundamental physics of our world are being rewritten, even if we can't feel the full heat in our daily lives yet. Look, at the end of the day, we are building machines with superhuman reasoning, and we are giving them planet-scale bodies to interact with our world. We are way past the point of this being speculation, so the most important question we can ask is no longer what will these machines do? The real question, the one we all have to face now, is in a world that has these new minds, what will we become?